Ever feel like you're wrestling with a tangled mess of wires and adapters when you're trying to get different AI tools to work together or to connect them to your own system?
I know what you mean. It's like there's a missing link, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, today we're going deep on something called the Model Context Protocol, MCP for short.
Yeah, MCP.
It's this really cool technology that aims to make these AI connections way smoother. Like, imagine if there was this universal adapter that could let any AI application plug into any data source or tool, no matter the format or anything. Wouldn't that be amazing?
Absolutely. Like, think of your AI assistant being able to instantly use any tool or data source, kind of like plugging in a USB drive. That's the whole idea behind MCP.
That's a great analogy. So in this deep dive, we're going to unpack exactly what MCP servers are, how they're different from those traditional APIs we always hear about, the benefits, the potential downsides, how to start using them, and even how to build your own.
Yeah, we'll get into all that.
And we'll also look at how businesses are starting to use this technology and what the future might hold. We want to make sure you walk away with a clear, practical understanding of MCP and why it's becoming so important.
Totally. It's going to be a fun one.
Okay, so first things first, let's break it down. What exactly is an MCP server?
All right, so in the simplest terms, think of an MCP server as a lightweight program that sits between your AI applications, which are called MCP clients, and all those different data sources and tools they need access to.
Okay, so it's like a middleman,
Yeah,
kind of
well,
like a translator.
exactly.
Got it.
So these clients could be anything, like AI agents you build with something like Pydantic AI or desktop apps like Claude,
Right.
or even coding environments like Cursor. And when these AI clients want to do something like pull data from a database or use a function from another application, they talk to the MCP server.
Oh, okay.
And then the MCP server handles that connection to the actual resource, whether it's that database, an old school API, or even files on a computer.
Makes sense.
And it presents those capabilities to the AI client in a standardized, easy to understand way.
So it's like taking all these different systems that speak different languages and giving them a common language, right?
Precisely.
So they can finally understand each other.
That's a great way to put it.
Awesome. So what kinds of things can these MCP servers actually access?
Okay, so there are three main things. First, you have resources.
Resources like what?
Resources are basically the actual data and content, like think text, images, files, anything like that. Then you've got prompts, which are like reusable templates for working with large language models.
Oh, cool. So it's like giving the AI some pre-written instruction.
You got it.
Okay, that's interesting.
And then third, and this is a big one, tools.
Tools. Okay, what do you mean by tools?
So these tools are specific functions that the AI can use to actually do things, to take action. Like imagine your AI can actually execute code or interact with other programs. That's what we're talking about.
Wow, so it's like giving the AI hands to work with.
Yeah, exactly. It really expands what the AI can do.
That's really powerful.
Right.
So how does this all actually work? You mentioned different layers involved, right?
Yeah, so there's the transport layer, which
Yeah.
is how all the messages are sent back and forth. If the AI client and the MCP server are on the same computer, it can be something simple, like using standard input and output, basic communication within that machine.
Got it.
But if they're on different machines or in the cloud, then it's often going to use something called HTTP with server-sent events, or SSE.
SSE. Okay.
It's just a fancy way of saying it's a way for web applications to get real-time updates. They can also use other methods like WebSockets. And then on top of that, there's the protocol layer. This is what defines the standard format for all the messages. It makes sure that any AI client can understand any MCP server that follows the protocol. It's about providing that consistent structure.
Okay, so it's like a universal translator, ensuring everyone is speaking the same language.
Exactly. And all this is to give the AI the context it needs to work with external systems.
Gotcha. So we hear a lot about APIs, and it seems like we already have ways for different applications to talk to each other. So what's the big difference between this MCP server and a regular API?
Right. So this is a great question. It's an important distinction. Traditional APIs, they often need very specific instructions in very specific formats.
Like coding, right?
Yes, exactly. So if an AI wants to use a traditional API, it has to know exactly what commands to use, what data to send, how to interpret the response, all that.
Yeah.
It's like a very rigid way of communicating.
Yeah, okay.
But MCP servers, they offer a more flexible, more intuitive interface. It's designed specifically for how AI understands and uses tools.
You give us an example.
Sure. Imagine you want to work with email.
Okay.
So a traditional Gmail API might have separate functions for like drafting an email, checking for new messages, sending an email.
Right.
And your AI would have to know exactly how to use each of those.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But an MCP server for Gmail, it could offer a more unified interface. Instead of needing to know all those specific API calls, the AI could potentially understand higher-level concepts, like send an email to this address with this content.
So it simplifies things?
Exactly. The MCP server would handle all those complex details of interacting with the actual
Yeah.
Gmail API.
Gotcha. So the AI doesn't need to be a coding expert to get things done.
Precisely. And that's really the beauty of it. And the goal with MCP is to avoid having to build custom integrations for every single AI framework out there.
Oh, that's huge.
Yeah, it's a big deal. So, if someone creates a tool for working with a database and they expose it through an MCP server, then any AI agent framework should be able to use it. Doesn't matter if it's Pydantic AI or NAN or Cursor.
Wow.
They should all be able to understand it without needing some special bespoke integration.
So it's all about sharing and reusing.
Exactly. It's about making the AI ecosystem as a whole more collaborative and efficient.
I love that. Okay, so let's talk about the actual benefits of using MCP servers. And are there any downsides we should be aware of?
So there are definitely a lot of benefits. Like we've been talking about, the standardization is a huge one. It offers this consistent way to package up tools and make them available. And this means that developers save a ton of time and effort. And AI agents can be integrated with lots of different services and data sources really easily.
It streamlines everything.
Yeah, it does.
Okay, so what about businesses? How does MCP benefit them?
Well, for enterprises, it means they can access internal data more securely and seamlessly. They don't need to build those complex custom integrations for every database or internal application.
That's a huge plus.
Right.
So it's like having a secure bridge between AI and all their sensitive information.
Exactly. And this opens up so many possibilities. Like, imagine an AI assistant that can securely query your company's knowledge base
Right.
or trigger internal workflows all through standardized MCP servers. That's pretty powerful stuff.
It is.
And here's another interesting thing. MCP could potentially allow AI to learn how to use new applications automatically. Because the interface is standardized, an AI might be able to figure out a new MCP server more easily than it could with a traditional API.
Wow, so it's like AI teaching itself new tricks.
Exactly. And then there's the potential for instant adaptation. If a service updates its API, the MCP server can be updated, and all the AI agents that use it will be good to go. They don't need to be changed.
That's super efficient.
And it could also lead to better performance and faster scaling, though that depends on how it's implemented.
Makes sense.
And because these servers connect to live data sources, AI agents get access to the most up-to-date information.
Oh, that's important.
Right. They're not stuck with some outdated knowledge cutoff.
Okay, so those are some pretty big advantages. What about the other side? Are there any downsides we need to be aware of?
Well, it's important to remember that MCP is still pretty new. It's not widely adopted yet, so it's still evolving.
Right.
And while the focus is on standardizing tools, things like resources and prompts, they're a bit more experimental.
So not everyone supports those yet.
Exactly. And even though the goal is to make things simpler, setting up and configuring MCP servers, especially if you're building your own, can be a bit technical.
Yeah, that's fair.
And, some implementations might require confirmation before an AI agent can use a tool.
For security reasons.
Right. Which is good for security, but it also means we need to be thinking carefully about authorization and security as this technology grows.
Absolutely. So promising, but still early days. Okay, so let's say someone wants to try out MCP. How would they actually use an MCP server?
Okay, so the first thing you need is an AI client, an application that can connect to MCP servers. We've mentioned a few, like Claude Desktop, Cursor, Windsurf.
Right, those are all good options.
There's also NAN, which is an automation platform, and Pydantic AI.
Got it.
And they all have ways to add and configure connections to existing MCP servers.
So are there places where you can find these pre-built servers?
Oh yeah, absolutely. There are a bunch of resources popping up. You can check out the official MCP GitHub repository.
Okay.
And there are platforms like Porky, Glamma, and Composi.dodev. They all have lists of available MCP servers.
Can you give us some examples of what you might find there?
Yeah, so you can find servers for things like Brave Search,
Brave Search.
which is great because it lets LLMs do web searches, something they can't usually do on their own,
That's handy.
right? There are also database connectors like Redis, Postgres, Supabase.
Okay.
And if you want to automate things in web browsers, there's BrowserBase's Stagehand platform, which gives you a headless browser.
Okay.
And then there's Quadrant for those working with vector databases for retrieval augmented generation.
Wow, that's a mouthful. RAG, right?
Yeah, all right.
Yeah.
And then there are servers for everyday productivity tools like Gmail, Google Drive, Notion,
Oh, that's
all
cool.
sorts of things.
So how do you actually connect to one of these servers and start using it?
It depends on the client application, but it's generally pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
Like in Cloud Desktop, you usually go to File, then Settings, then Developer, and then Edit Config.
Right.
And that opens up a JSON file where you can specify the details of the server. In Cursor, it's File, Preferences, Cursor Settings, and then you find the MCP section and add a new server there.
Okay.
And then you just provide the server's name, the type of connection, and any commands or arguments it needs.
So once you're connected, how does the AI actually use those tools from the server?
So once that connection is made, the AI agent in your client application knows what tools are available.
Got it.
And if you ask it to do something and it needs one of those tools, it'll usually ask for permission first.
Like a safety check.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
A lot of clients like Claude and Cursor also have a tools section where you can see all the available tools and their descriptions.
That makes sense. So what if someone wants to create their own MCP server, to offer some special capability? How would they do that?
That's awesome. Building your own server is totally doable,
Cool.
and you can really customize things to your needs.
So where do you even begin?
Okay, so MCP provides SDKs, or software development kits, in both Python and JavaScript.
Oh, okay.
Node.js for JavaScript. And the official MCP documentation, especially the part for server developers, is super helpful. They have tons of examples there.
So what's the basic structure of an MCP server? What does it look like?
The first step is to define your server.
Okay.
Give it a name and a version number. Then you add the capabilities you want to expose. Mostly that means defining tools.
Right.
And there are a few things to consider when defining a tool. First, you give it a clear name and a description so the AI knows what it does.
Makes sense.
Then you define the input parameters, specifying data types using libraries like Zod for type safety. And finally, you write the code that actually gets executed when the AI uses the tool. It's called a callback function.
Oh, okay.
This function does whatever the tool is supposed to do, like query a database or call another API. Then it returns a response that the AI can understand.
Got it. And how do you actually run the server once you've written all the code?
You usually run it by executing a script.
Like a Python script or a Node.js script.
Exactly. And the documentation for the SDKs will tell you exactly how to do that. There are even developers using LLMs to help generate the initial code for their MCP servers. It's amazing. But the most important thing to remember is to get the names and descriptions of your tools clear.
So the AI knows what to do with them.
Exactly. It needs to be super clear when and how to use them.
Okay, so we've talked about how individuals might use MCP servers, but what about businesses? Are companies actually adopting this technology, and what are the benefits for larger organizations?
Yes, we're seeing growing interest from the enterprise world. Companies like Block and Apollo have already shown interest in early adopters. And big development tool providers like Zed, Replit, Kadam, and SourceGraph are looking into MCP as well. But I think one of the biggest signals is that Microsoft is integrating MCP directly into Copilot Studio.
Oh, wow. That's significant.
Yeah, it really is. It shows that they believe in the potential of MCP to change how AI applications interact with enterprise systems.
Especially for companies that already use Microsoft products.
Exactly. And companies like Chainlit are helping businesses build their own MCP infrastructure.
So the demand is definitely there.
Absolutely.
So how can companies actually put MCP servers to work?
There are so many ways. One key area is secure data access. MCP servers act like these controlled gateways, allowing AI to access databases and internal tools securely without needing complex integrations for every single data source.
So it's a much more secure way to let AI interact with sensitive company data.
Exactly. Think about things like generating internal reports, analyzing trends, providing AI-driven insights to employees. It's a game changer.
This is huge.
And then there's automation.
Oh, yeah, that's a big one.
Right. You can expose internal functions as tools through MCP servers.
So AI agents can handle all those repetitive tasks.
Yes. Managing customer inquiries, updating records, streamlining operations. It's amazing.
Can you give us some more concrete examples?
Yeah, think about an e-commerce company. They could have an MCP server for their customer relationship management system.
Right.
So an AI can look up order history or update contact information.
Got it.
Or maybe they have a server for their inventory management system, and the AI can check stock levels or order more products.
Okay, I see. So it's like an AI assistant that can actually do things.
Yes. And an employee could just tell the AI, update this customer's address or check how much of this product we have, and it would just happen.
Wow, that's incredibly efficient.
It is. And the same goes for other types of businesses. A software as a service company, for instance, could have a server for their billing system, and an AI could automatically generate invoices or manage subscriptions.
That would save so much time.
Right. And the beauty of it is when those systems are updated, you just update the MCP server. You don't have to keep rewriting the AI applications.
That's brilliant. Okay, so for our listeners who want to explore all of this, where can they find some useful pre-made MCP servers, and how can they access them?
There are some great resources out there.
Yeah.
Definitely check out Portkey, Glama, and Compose.dev. They all have lists of publicly available servers organized by what they do.
Got it.
So you need web search, there's Brave Search. For databases, there's Redis, Postgres, Subabase. For browser automation, there's BrowserBase's Stagehand server.
Okay.
And if you're working with ARG, you'll want Quadrant. And then there are servers for things like Gmail, Google Drive, Notion, so many options.
And is there a standard way to access these servers, or does it vary?
It can be a bit different depending on the server.
Okay.
Some you run locally using Docker or NPX or UVX, depending on the language.
Right.
You'll usually find instructions in their GitHub repositories.
Got it.
But managed services like Compose.dev, they usually give you an SSE link, so you just paste that into your client, and you're good to go.
Okay, so pretty straightforward.
Yeah, usually. And official integrations from companies might have their own instructions, maybe using API keys.
Right.
The best thing to do is to check the documentation for the specific server you want to use.
That makes sense. Well, this has been an incredible deep dive into the world of MCP servers. As we wrap things up, what's the one key takeaway our listeners should remember?
I think the most important thing to understand is that MCP server is a huge step towards making it easier for AI agents to use all those amazing tools and data sources that are out there.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it comes with so many benefits, from simplifying development and integrations to making data access more secure and ensuring AI has the most up-to-date information.
And while it's still early days, it's definitely a technology to keep an eye on.
Oh, for sure.
So for our listeners, here's a final thought.
Yeah.
Think about all the tools and data sources that are crucial to your work or your organization. What would you connect to an AI agent if you could? What tasks would you automate? What insights would you unlock?
Great questions.
Check out the resources we mentioned because there are already a lot of great MCP servers out there. And maybe even consider building your own. Who knows what amazing things you could achieve?
Absolutely. The possibilities are endless.